All right, what's going on there, folks? Good evening. Welcome back here. It is your Earthmaster out here on this wonderful Wednesday evening, November 8th, 2023. I feel like I'm living in the future here. 2023. Think about that. For the folks of my age, it's kind of crazy. Goodness. All right, what's going on out here? The latest activity does show some movement up here across the Kurokamachaca Trench. That is up there off the coast here of Japan. The latest one, a 4.4 earthquake here into the Japan area. That's going to be this earthquake here. North of Tokyo, about 10 kilometers deep. Could all this activity be pinpointing towards the mega quake potential out here? Across the Kurokamachaca? Who knows? I mean, we've seen a lot of crazy activity here over the last 24 hours. Goodness. So we're going to start off here with the largest magnitudes. Of course, a 6.7 here in the last 24 hours. Of course, we did see a 7.1 and a 6.9 prior to this activity. Goodness, a lot of activity stirred up out here across the plates this last couple days here. Also, we did see a 5.2 earthquake into the area of Pecos, Texas. What's going on out there in Pecos, Texas? Right? There is, from a human perspective, Pecos, Texas has your typical residential neighborhoods and your typical motels here across the interstates, for your traveling companions, and also quite a few restaurants out there. And I heard the Mexican food out there is pretty good too. I've been out here a couple times, but I haven't stopped to observe the activity that's going on out here. It kind of takes hold on a second here. Stand by for 1 second here. I'm going to bring there we go. I need to bring up something here real quick. At least on my side. And we'll kind of pinpoint that here real quick. Stand by. It's just one of your abnormal activities going on out here tonight. I want to bring up the Google Earth program here and look at the activity that's stirring up out here across. Well, what happened here? Hold on a second here. It looks like I'm back on Firefox. I'm testing out a couple browsers out here just to see what works better. Firefox, I don't know. I used them for years in the past, but I don't know. I like Google Chrome. I really do. I appreciate the dynamics here of Google Chrome and their security that they have. So Firefox may be more operational between sites that may be not secured, but I find the fastness, so to speak, here with Google Chrome to be the dominant browser in my PC world, that is. All right, so Texas, goodness, we've had a lot of earthquake activity out here today, including a 5.2 earthquake. Look at that, 5.2 near Colson Draw. So Colson Draw, what is going on out there in Texas that is creating this type of earthquake activity? We're going to get into a little bit of more dynamics in terms of the oil fields out here. A lot of people are saying that oil fields do not contribute to earthquake activity, but there's been scientific data. There's been all sorts of studies in terms of the large uptick in earthquake activity since the oil boom has begun out here. Fracking operations, oil pumping operations, wastewater disposal facilities, all that has a huge impact on what's going on at the surface levels of the North American plate, right? The North American plate is obviously under strain right now. We're seeing those weak crustal areas being affected out here across these oil fields. I'm kind of waiting. I think I'm signed up, but I don't know. I'm pretty certain that I am. I want to enter into the Google Earth program, the location here. I pulled up the location of this morning's 5.2 earthquake out there in Pecos, Texas, okay? Because I want to show you guys exactly what's going on there in this area of Texas. All right, a lot of people know, a lot of people don't know, a lot of people choose to ignore, but this area of Texas is literally littered with oil fields out here. This is within feet of this oil pumping operation out there. So if you take a look, take a gander, okay? Take a good gander of all these oil, what are those called? Silos. You can see the shadow of them there from the sun. A lot of pumps out here, big time money makers. It only takes probably about, probably 2 operators out here to run this whole facility. This is just one facility of thousands that are out here across this area of Texas, tens of thousands probably. But it only takes 1 or 2 manpower to run the oil operations out here. And those guys make some good time money. If you want to get a job out there in Texas, this is the area to make sufficient employment opportunities and money-wise out here. So we're looking literally within feet of that area. Out here is a beautiful swimming pool that those hard workers get to jump in. There's the ladder to step down into this beautiful water out here. Just kidding. I'm just kidding, folks. That is not a swimming pool. This is a wastewater disposal facility out there. And I guarantee you the oil field workers do not jump in this. I would hope that they're not jumping into this. That would not be good, because this is probably poisonous to those oil workers, because this is leftover ingredients, so to speak, between the operations of withdrawing the oil from underneath this area. And this stuff does get re-injected down below into the areas below the surface. This is just a small area, folks. And I try to cover this a lot. There is a huge article on this, okay? This is not just me making stuff up. This is not anyone just saying this is what's happening. But scientists and geologists and everyone alike, environmentalists, have come to the conclusion that oil and gas operations, this was back in 2015, they entered that word could, but this should be does trigger large earthquakes out here. And that's from the U.S. Geological Survey, the USGS, the folks that I monitor every single day, out here, and I give them a shout out. I try to. So earthquake activity out here has been rampant in these oil fields out here. And this is just in Oklahoma, right? Look at this model here. Earthquake hazard in central Oklahoma due to oil and gas operations is now comparable to the natural hazard in southeastern Missouri. Do you guys know what's out there in southeastern Missouri, by the way? It's a natural hazard. See that? Natural hazard, known as the New Madrid seismic zone. So these are typical fault systems out here in the North American plate that are natural. So Oklahoma, Kansas, they haven't really included down here in Pecos, Texas, but I guarantee you today's events down there in Texas has proven so that they should be rampant up here in terms of this graph. Not even joking. So this goes to show you the hazard out here because of natural gas and oil operations out here. There's a wealth of information on this site, folks. I don't want to bring in this every single paragraph because we would turn this into an hour-long video, and I don't want to go that far tonight. But someone asked me, how does the earthquakes take place out here in oil fields? Okay, there's a lot of stress that goes on involved in injection of fluid, right? It increases the pressure within the pores of the deep rock formations, pushing faults that are already critically stressed by forces in the Earth's crust. Okay, so that is right smack dab, 100% of what I said this morning, that the North American plate is already underneath incredible stress and pressure. So when you create that activity out there in that pressurized zone, you get some earthquakes out there. And a lot of people know it. A lot of people don't like to say it because, well, it puts food on the table. It feeds my family, okay? But this is just facts. These are not guesstimates. These are not estimates. These are scientific data, scientific graphs that have come to play out here. And Texas is reaping what they sow. Literally, if you really think about it, Texas is reaping what they sow out here. I love the beautiful state of Texas, but I guarantee you, you guys are in for some treats when it comes to earthquake activity. Look at the satellite data. You could zoom in on pretty much anywhere out here in the state of Texas, and you'll see massive amounts of oil pumping operations. Look at this. This is a ways away from Pecos, Texas activity this morning. Look at this. Look at this activity. All this activity is oil pumping operations. All these guys are making some big time money, big time dollars going into those Texas pockets out there. I mean, these guys are making millions of dollars. And there's quite a few people that are chiming in on it. Look at this. Look at this around the city. This is the, what area is this? Hobbs, Texas, all right? Look at the satellite data as we zoom into Hobbs. Here's the city data. But look, goodness, there's as many pumping operations out here as there is houses, I think. When I was out there in Texas the past couple years, well, I think it was earlier this year, maybe last year. I go out to Texas and Oklahoma to storm chase, and I love the people of Texas. I'm not dogging on anyone out here in Texas because this is their money maker. I get it. This is their money maker, but also at the same time, their money maker is including earthquake activity out here, stresses against the North American plate. That's a fact. You know, you can't deny it. I love the people of Texas. But I seen when I was out here in this area of Texas earlier this year or last year, many people had these pumping and oil pumping operations. And that's what you're seeing here. These little squares. There's oil pumps. They go bump, jump, 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 and it pumps oil up out of the ground. I seen a bunch of oil pumping operations in people's front yards front yards. So they didn't have greenery in their front yard. They had an oil pump. You know those things? I can't recall what they're called, but it's an oil pump, and they go in the ground, they pump out, they go in the ground, they pump out. I'm sure you guys have seen them. I think there's a word for them, but I just can't remember. But yeah, every single one of these guys out here had these in their front yard or backyard. It's like, goodness. Drive down Main Street here, and we're looking at oil pumping operations. So humans have always been about accumulation, right? What can make you money? What can you survive off of? In this area of Texas, you can see it out here, man. These guys are making money. I don't blame them. I'm not gonna dog them. I'm not gonna blame them. But with that activity comes earthquake activity. And the damage potentially from some larger scale activity out here is at hand. And that is the future. And lawsuits can come involved in that. You know, say you got some major earthquake activity out here. 5.2 is pretty large. And if you're pretty close to that earthquake activity and it damages your house, you could trigger up a lawsuit against some of these folks out here. So it happened out here in Northern California where we have hydrothermal operation plants ongoing. So it's, you know, there's always consequences to someone's actions and someone's behaviors. You know, I get it. These guys make money, and it's all about money out here in Western Texas, right? You got the Permian Basin out here. These guys make trillions of dollars. If you put together the total value out here, yeah, I wish I had some oil rights out here. Not even joking. Because that would probably make my life easier, right? A little bit of money always makes people's life a little bit easier, but at the same time, what's in the future? What does all these earthquakes out here in western Texas mean for the oil fields and the oil workers out here? Is there going to be lawsuits coming in? Is there going to be some changes going on? Unfortunately, the damage is done. The damage is completed out here. And let's see here. Let me see if I can bring up. I thought I brought up a little bit different article on this. But if you were to go back here and look at the earthquake activity since about 1960, when the oil boom began, you would see a major increase in earthquake activity since these oil fields started popping up. Now, what's a little scary is that geologists are now saying that such induced earthquakes could potentially be as large as a 7.0. So imagine that 7.0 underneath Dallas, Texas, or Oklahoma City, Amarillo, Midland, Texas. The damage is there, and that's a little scary. I talked about the area of interest here since this earthquake activity began. How it's over a broad area, right? This is over a very, very broad area here of Texas. And it's a little. This is the last 24 hours of earthquake activity. We can go back last. Basically, they've all stuck to the last 24 hours here within this area where that 5-pointer struck, which is right here, a 5.2. So this whole area is showing strain and stress. So what happens with a complete collapse of this area? That could trigger a 7-pointer out here in this oil field area. Look at this, folks. I mean, I don't have to go far. I mean, if you were to go anywhere out here in Texas, you would see a massive amount of these oil fields. I see them all over the place. Look at this. Look at all this damage that has been done out here in Texas. It's what's the word I'm looking for? There we go. That's the word I'm looking for. Fathomable. There we go. I just can't spit it out tonight. It's one of those things. And they're all over the place, folks. Some of these oil fields have not been hit at all with earthquake pressure, with earthquake activity. But I guarantee you, it's coming in the future. These areas across Texas are going to be seeing some very large earthquakes out here. I think up to the 7.0 magnitude that they were claiming there from the USGS. The damage is done. The stress is out there. It's coming. So look for larger earthquake activity out here across Texas and Oklahoma, anywhere where there's oil field operations. That's a fact. It's not a guesstimate. It's not a lollygag theory. This is something that takes place out here scientifically, and we've seen the uptick in earthquake activity out here due to the pumping operations that are taking place out here in Texas. That's a fact, folks. Whether anyone wants to, drive their 2023 Dodge up and dispute it, you're welcome to. But money talks, right? If you think about it. Money can wipe away this scientific theory, and unfortunately, a lot of people tend to go that route. But the facts are the facts. Get used to it. There's some bigger earthquakes coming out there to Texas and Oklahoma. That's a fact. All right, we're going to move on here and check out Mount St. Helens here into the area. We got a couple earthquakes out there. Looks like some very small earthquakes. But I do want to do a total tally. Okay, we kind of have to look at that, right? We need to know what's going on out there. We're going to go back since about, let's see here. I'm going to go 06, okay? June of this year. And I'm going to draw... Does it have to be a rectangle? Why do I have to draw a rectangle? Why can't I draw a triangle or maybe a square? Okay. Mount St. Helens here, folks. We're going to just cover this area. that's it. That's all we're gonna do. This main area out here across Mount St. Helens, because it's of interest right now. I think it's of some importance in terms of earthquake activity. This is a pretty good earthquake swarm that's been kicking up. Okay, you guys see this number over here? 362 earthquakes confined there across the Mount St. Helens area at the summit, right at the summit area. We have not seen any major increases of gas out here, gas emissions related to volcanic activity, other than back in September, early September, we've seen a spike on the, was it CO2? Or I can't remember what it was. Let me go back over here and look here real quick. I'm going to try not to make this a super long video, but hey, you know what? It is a Wednesday night, and what else? What else is going on, right? Might as well chime into some information going on here. And it's definitely worthy of interest here. So I think it was the sulfur dioxide chart right here. Back in September, we've seen a huge spike right about the time that this earthquake activity picked up here. But it doesn't look like the overall trend for now is showing anything elevated. But if you were to go back here in the past couple videos, when this earthquake activity triggered up here, you would see that I pointed that out. I wish I took a screenshot of it, but, you know, sometimes it's one of those deals where you just forget about it. But earthquake activity has been elevated out here across Mount St. Helens. There's no signs of volcanic gas emission elevation. Far as GPS activity goes, well, that's another thing. I mean, we could look at that, and this is back in 2020. I did look at some of the activity here on one of these other stations, and it was very minimal. But the thing is, the USGS did put out a informational statement on this activity there across the Mount St. Helens area. And they relate it to the magma intrusion underneath this area, about 5 or 6 kilometers or so below the surface. It is currently at a normal status, and they call this normal because they say this earthquake activity is normal in background activity. So 300 or 400 earthquakes is normal, according to these guys. So over 400 earthquakes have been located by the Pacific Northwest Seismic Network since July of this year. No changes have been detected in ground deformation, volcanic gas, or thermal emissions. But the volcanic gas, they left that out. Like I mentioned, back in early September, there was a spike. There was a big spike. I wish I could go back here and look at the data. I'm not for sure how to get the data back from September of volcanic gases, but you guys would see that as a huge spike. And that was it. It dropped back down. Short-term increases in earthquake activity are common at Mount St. Helens and are considered part of the background seismicity. So Mount St. Helens, at these depths here, these earthquakes well below sea level are generally thought to be associated with pressurization of the magma transport system here. So I think, you know, this area is getting recharged here. I really think we are getting recharged. Look at those depths there for the accumulated reservoir between 4 to 10 kilometers. That's 2.5 to 6 kilometers deep. The majority of these earthquakes fit within that category here. Almost 400 earthquakes here. And the USGS reporting that 400 mark. So, yeah. I think things are definitely getting active here across the area of the Cascades. That has a big part in the Cascadia subduction zone, right? If you really think about it, what's happening to the Juan de Fuca plate? It's being subducted underneath the North American plate. You creating that volcanic arc out here across Northern California northward. All that melted material eventually rising back up to the surface in a form of life. The cycle of life, right? That Juan de Fuca plate disappearing underneath the North American plate. Far as tremor activity goes, and that is obviously associated with the Cascadia, only seven epicenters. I don't know where I got 8 from. I think I was seeing the 8 out here. Very minimal, very, very minimal. And this has been the case here, I would say, since October of last year. We've seen some pretty good tremor amounts here. If you look at these regular intervals here, these are intervals keying up, chiming up every few months or so. We are entering into a very quiet period of tremor activity. And what that means, I don't know. This is all brand new in terms of studying the subduction zone here across the the Pacific Northwest. All right, let's get on here to California activity. It's probably going to be an hour-long video, folks. Hour-long video coming up. I don't know what the longest video I've done out here. I think it was probably 40 minutes or so. We put out a pretty good video this morning and last night. So, and we've had a couple hundred subscribers join in off of those videos. So we appreciate everyone chiming in here on the channel. That does help out quite a bit. Sometimes those longer videos do provide interest out there across the viewers. 1.8, because you can only put out so much out here, right, in terms of information in 10 minutes. A lot of people like these 2-minute short videos. Really, what am I going to say in 2 minutes? You know, I don't even want to go into it. I can't do it. So let's look at the West Coast activity. Not seeing anything out of the ordinary. We did see some activity here off the plate boundary near Coalinga earlier this morning, and also throughout the afternoon time period. Now, this is associated with a little fault system that runs up against the valley area. This is secondary in terms of pressure off of the San Andreas Fault. Further down south, there's not a whole lot going on. A couple smaller quakes on the North American side of the plate boundary. That's what we got to watch out for, because strain up here, if we start seeing earthquake activity off of the plate boundary on the North American side of the plate boundary, that's a good sign here that we got some huge pressure going on up against the plate boundary. We already know, I don't have to tell you. I think you guys seen that across news articles and many major media outlets. There we go, and also some other geologists out here that this region is pretty much sprung about as much as it can be here, as far as winding up the stress against this plate boundary. Stress and tension builds up over time, and this area has not seen a mega quake, at least a full rupture out here, in over 300 years. Up north, we've seen a little bit of activity back in the years, but this area is definitely capable of producing some large earthquakes, and it's overdue. Definitely overdue. A little bit of activity here in Texas. Once again, in the last hour, we got a 1.7. This is outside of the normal swarming area from today. I'm kind of curious to see what's going on out here. But it is, it's up there in the hills or these mountain ranges, it looks like. There is some fault systems that run up here. This is not all just oil fields out here, but there's the Delaware Mountains, and there's fault systems that run up here that is stress related with the North American plate. But we'll watch that. A 7-pointer out there. I think folks would definitely be feeling that. That's for sure. All right, let's get back here to earthquake activity. What's going on up here around Mauna Kea? Doesn't look like anything major. We do have a 2.4 earthquake here, 21 kilometers deep across this volcano, underneath this volcano. Of course, these are older volcanoes out here across the land. New land building out here. Of course, eventually, if you want to purchase some beautiful oceanic scenery out here in the Hawaiian Islands, this will all be forming throughout the next 100,000 or a couple million years or so. We've seen that out here, right? But apparently it hasn't worked out for the past civilizations out here. They've all been pretty much diminished here with erosion and whatnot. You can see that line of activity for the Hawaiian Islands. And that's probably the future. It's going to be the future here of the Big Island and Honolulu and everyone else that lives out there. But, luckily for us, our lifespan is very minimal compared to geological activity out here. Earthquake activity. Let's go ahead and look at not Mauna Loa, but the Kilauea volcano. Very minimal activity. I'm not really seeing anything major going on. I do want to check out the latest informational statement here because we did not see that earlier in our update. Kilauea volcano is not erupting. These guys are saying that the activity, the unrest associated with the intrusion is diminished. But I want to know about the inflation. What's going on with the inflation? The summit tiltmeter located northwest of the caldera measured slight gradual uplift over the last 24 hours, continuing an inflation trend that began back on November 6th. These guys are not really stressing on it much. These guys are kind of putting off the inflation that's been observed here across the area. Let me show you guys real quick, kind of point out what I'm trying to say here. There's a tilt meter here that's been showing tremendous inflation over the last 2 days. We haven't seen the earthquake activity at all with this, but if you look here, look at that. We have not seen anything like this in the past inflation events. That is unprecedented. So something is going on here. Look at that. They were talking about here that this has been the largest inflation activity here across the summit area in over, I think it's at least 5 years. So magma is accumulating, but we're not seeing the earthquake activity. But look at that. You can't tell me that's not noticeable. Look at that huge inflation amount compared to the previous inflations. And just a couple days ago, I was talking about how this may be a decline in deflation, that we may see this gradually drop down here. But look at that. That is a huge jump up there across the area of Kilauea volcano. So I think these guys are downplaying this a little bit. I wouldn't be downplaying this. Any type of inflation of that matter shows that magma and ground deformation there is something to worry about. And that activity is striking out there across the area southwest of, or just south of the Kilauea volcano area, right around this area right here, where we've seen most of the earthquake activity. Let me bring this back up here. Last 30 days. This area right here. Although we have seen earthquake activity drop off, does not mean anything at all. The tilt meter shows us that inflation is going on big time out here. So magma intrusion is building underneath this area. The question is, how much magma is brewing out here? Is it maybe island-wide? Imagine that. Multiple huge eruptions going on out here across Hawaii. Or is it going to be limited to this area? I'm going to watch this pretty closely. I think it's something to watch here in the near future. The inflation data does not lie, but we're definitely not seeing earthquake activity in relation to that inflation right now. As far as earthquake activity out here across the Banda Sea, goodness, we've seen quite a bit of earthquake activity out here, right? 7.1, 6.9, 6.7. The last earthquake, though, shows a 4.6 out here about 10 o'clock this morning or so. No further migration out here across the Java Trench. Look at that. Not a whole lot of activity where we would expect to see that transpire of that momentum, so to speak. Down here in the New Zealand area, we've got a 3.0. Looks like a 5.2 Kermadec Trench from earlier. That 5.2 coming in early, super early this morning. And only very minimal earthquake activity here on the earthquake 3D globe. Alaska area fairly quiet. Not seeing anything major going on up there. No unusual activity. Caribbean looks pretty quiet for now. South America region as well. The Atlantic Ocean pretty quiet aside from some activity stirring up north. I don't know. Are we in eruption stage yet? Because this activity is looking pretty crazy, including a 5.1. So let's go ahead and go over here to the news articles here across the Icelandic Meteorological Office here. Now, this is the latest information here, including what looks like approximately 1,200 earthquakes have been measured in the last 24 hours. Here is your ground deformation satellite view. Look at this. Let me show you guys here real quick. This is a little slow. Not for sure why, but this is building. This has been building here for the past couple days, October 28th to the 6th of November. We're looking at an impending eruption here soon. I think more so along the lines of an explosive eruption. The seismic activity continues at the same depth as before. It is likely that seismic activity will continue and be episodic in intensity while magma accumulation is going on below. There you go, folks. The question is, how much is it going to take? Look at that. There's a 5.1. Quite a few earthquakes up there. That's a lot of earthquake activity, at least here on the earthquake 3D globe. Obviously, there's 1,200 earthquakes taking place there. We'll see how this plays out. I think there's a lot of ifs, right? This area in Iceland is very prone to earthquake activity and volcanic activity. Where we're seeing that earthquake activity right now, it's over here. It's more over here. But the Wreck James Peninsula in general is at a yellow, and the last eruption was back in 1240 CE. But this activity is stirring up right around this area right here, as we've seen on the map. It's definitely building. That's an obvious sign there that this area is, goodness, under some big time stress. Further west here, across the area of Turkey, a couple earthquakes here from, looks like earlier this morning. A 4.6 though coming in earlier this evening right here across the plate boundary. A little odd here across this area. Not a whole lot going on across the Mediterranean. In fact, here, I don't know why we're not seeing anything going on out there right now. It's a little strange because normally we would see earthquake activity stirring up out here across that region. So that's a little odd to not see anything out here across that area. Doesn't mean anything isn't occurring, but as far as the earthquake 3D globe, it's a little odd. 2.5 here west, across the area of Indonesia Islands area, but we'll just kind of watch this, see how this progresses. There's a lot going on here in this area right now. And Texas is right up there included, right? You'd think Texas is right along the plate boundary, but it's not. But that just goes to show you the extreme stress out here and the pressure that's building up here against the North American plate. Could have something to do with the extreme stress across the Western Pacific or the Eastern Pacific here. That would include the West Coast of California. Space weather activity is another story. 3483 here, the center sunspot, is about the only region that I am going to write home to Grandma about. And even so, it's not that important. There's not a whole lot of complexity out here. One further sunspot down the line here that's shown a little bit of growth here in the last few hours. But the main area of interest is this region right now. But the way it's looking, I think we're going to see a separation here of these cores tomorrow, which would put that at a diminishing stage. Right now, there's only an 80% chance for a C flare, M flare at 10% chance, X flare around 1% or so. Unfortunately, that's been the case here recently. One would think here, as we're heading into solar maximum, that we would see intensifying sunspots, but something's going on here. We've noticed here in the last couple of weeks a major decline in the space weather activity here. Now, I know auroras do play a major part in space weather, but the flare activity, the sunspots here in general, have not been that strong. We just got lucky here with the auroras here recently with a couple CMEs and a large coronal hole that had been facing us. So, as far as the major uptick going on here across the area of the sun, I don't know what's going on with it. Maybe we're venturing back into solar maximum. Maybe that was it. West Coast, California, eastern portion of the country. Let's look at this, because this is going to be two different stories out here. If you guys are very interested in hot weather, warm, dry weather out here, well, there might be some precipitation out here, but above average temperatures out here. If you guys like that, congratulations here. Coming up next week, all across the plains, northern plains, middle, the Great Lakes area, eastern portion of the country. Welcome to wintertime. Well, maybe the secondary summer. You guys are looking at some well above temperatures out here across the area. California, we are looking at inches upon inches of rainfall coming in. And it's pretty impressive here with the low pressure system that's going to be stirring up here across the West Coast. Let me show you guys here real quick this area. Western United States precipitation and the let's go to accumulated precipitation out here. I think this will give us a good indicator. This is it looks like this is including the storm systems here next week. We have some good precipitation accumulation amounts coming up here across California. Southern California as well. We're talking about 3 to 5 inches of rainfall down there. Mountain ranges, Northern California, northward here. That is good. This is good news. This is what we want to see here for California. The Sacramento Valley, I'm still seeing precipitation amounts around 4 to 5 inches or so. And a lot of that is coming next week from a series of storm systems that are set to slam into California. El Nino is coming up. We're in El Nino, as a matter of fact. And we are looking at some wetter than normal conditions coming up here for the West Coast area. Here is a current El Nino chart. Now, this is just Nino 4, it looks like. Now, what these mean specifically? Well, these are general graphs here of strength of El Ninos over the past couple years, over the past couple events. Right, 2015, 2016 was a strong El Nino event. Look where we're at right now, 2023, 2024. Let me see if I can bring this up here a little bit. Hold on a second here. Let's bring this back up. Right here, 2023, 2024. We're up here with what looks like maybe a tie for the 2015-2016 event, but it looks like we're above 1997-98 event here. So this is peaking out into a good, strong El Nino pattern for the West Coast. Now, what that means here is a seasonal temperature outlook here for November, December, January. Also, November, December, January seasonal precipitation outlook. Now, there's definitely equal chances out here across this area of the board. Above average chances of rainfall out there across the southeast and eastern portions of the country as that subtropical jet streams up here across this area. But we're not noticing any major cold spells coming down from the north, and that is due in part, or actually mainly in part, because of the El Nino pattern that's kicking up here. Now, this is just November, December, and January. If we go into December, January, and February, we'll see the full brunt of this. That is when the most substantial storms will kick up here across California. Look at that, above average precipitation out here across the West Coast, and areas where that subtropical jet will flow into that. Well, it's a Pacific jet. It's much lower here than it would be, say, for example, in the La Nina, we'd see that up here. But for December, January, and February, look at these precipitation amounts out here. No cold spells going on out here. But that also includes below precipitation out here for across a good portion of the rest of the states up here. But for California-wise, we're looking at some decent rainfall coming up. Here is the February, March, and April equal chances out here. I think we'll see some further precipitation amounts accumulating out here across the springtime because El Nino is expected to continue through the springtime period and then weaken as we head into summer of 2024. But I think we're in for a treat, folks. I think we are in for a treat. We did see a pretty sufficient winter last year, got us out of the drought here across the West Coast, and if we get a strong El Nino event, that's going to continue to keep us out of the drought here along the West Coast, which I am very thankful for. So we'll continue to watch this weather pattern that comes across the area. I'm looking forward to it. I'm not even joking. I keep checking. Believe it or not, that's the first thing I do when I wake up in the morning. I look at my weather app, and I use Weather Underground. That's a wonderful app to use. I have my local station keyed up here for outside the Chico area. And the first thing I do is look at the forecast here. And it looks like Tuesday of next week is when we start seeing inches upon inches of rain. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, soaking wet. I'm not even joking. And that to me is probably better than winning the lottery. I'm not even joking. I'm a big fan of the wet weather, and I couldn't ask for more out here. The weather makes me happy in terms of the storminess out here. So bring it on. I'm very thankful. Thank you for bringing this storminess to me. All right, what else we got here, folks? What are we at? We're at 48 minutes. We're getting close here to our maximum, I think our most maximum length video out here. I'm trying to think of what else to chat about in terms of activity. Well, the I've been pronouncing that wrong, so it's the oh man, I can't remember that. I just went blank right now, but it's not the Rick James Peninsula. It's the Rick James, or no, I can't remember. Goodness, I'm gonna have to get back to you guys on that because I'm kind of studying up here in the correct pronunciation of the volcanoes and the peninsulas out here. But I'm trying. I'm not a master in terms of correct pronunciation, so let's strike one on me. But as far as earthquake activity out here. Oh goodness! Look at this! Past Thursday. This is Thursday, the general mountain time or GMT time out here. That's all that earthquake activity that we're seeing there today. Also showing up on the globe. Look at that! A huge influx of earthquake activity that's been striking out there in this region. I think it's getting close. I think we're getting close to an eruption out here, and I think this will be a little bit more explosive eruption compared to other areas around Iceland in terms of the volcanic activity out here. I think we're going to see it. I think we're going to see some pretty large eruption activity out here. Let's see, what else is there, folks? I'll leave this little article here in the update. I think it's worth reading because a lot of people questioning why oil fields get earthquakes. And it's not just the fact that there's fracking operations and wastewater disposal facilities taking place out here. It's the fact that the areas down below are always pressurized, right, due to the North American plate in general, the pressure out here against the area. And when you create weak areas of the crust out here against the North American plate, you run into the potential of creating larger earthquakes for the displacement that was created. All right, guys, I'm out of here. Hope everyone has a good day, good night. That was a pretty lengthy video. We're looking at, looks like 51 minutes. I would have to say that's my longest video, so I don't know if I should be proud or what, but if you guys like these longer videos, let me know. We'll make some longer videos here in the future. If you guys want it. A little bit of earthquake activity there across Thailand and also Japan. A couple smaller spikes there showing up on the live seismograph stations there. We'll catch you guys back here tomorrow sometime, right? Thursday. Have a good night.